Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Reagan Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back to the Patrick Reagan Show. Proud member of the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network, listening to 3 Days Grace Song Chalk Outline. Something we'd like to be drawing around the ignorance of freedom and liberty. Although some of it isn't ignorance, it is frightfulness. It is uncertainty in oneself and abilities. But by listening to this show each week, you will build the confidence that, yes, you too can live without the daily intervention of government in your life. In fact, you will come to really enjoy and cherish the freedom you have without government shackles weighing you down. But you have to want it. Like any addiction, people addicted to government won't reject it until they have hit rock bottom. Speaking of people rejecting government, about the closest in a president that we have had recently is Ronald Reagan. His birthday was this last week, and I want to play a few clips from his 1981 inauguration speech, part of which is played during the opening of this very show. When you listen to it, you can almost cut and paste his remarks to our current time. Now, here is the first clip from that speech.
Idle industries have cast workers into unemployment, human misery, and personal indignity. Those who do work are denied a fair return for their labor by a tax system which penalizes successful achievement and keeps us from maintaining full productivity. But great as our tax burden is, it has not kept pace with public spending. For decades, we have piled deficit upon deficit, mortgaging our future and our children's future for the temporary convenience of the present. To continue this long trend is to guarantee tremendous social, cultural, political, and economic upheavals. You and I, as individuals, can, by borrowing, live beyond our means, but for only a limited period of time. Why then should we think that collectively, as a nation, we're not bound by that same limitation?
Wow, is that not applicable to today? We have piled deficit upon deficit, mortgaging our future and our children's future for the temporary convenience of the present. That whole clip was it's just amazing how much he knew was going to happen if we did not get control of all this.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. From time to time, we've been tempted to believe that society has become too complex to be managed by self-rule, that government by an elite group is superior to government for, by, and of the people. Well, if no one among us is capable of governing himself, then who among us has the capacity to govern someone else?
You can hear even back then, in 1981, there was this assumption that people in Washington and government in general could run your life better than you could, that you were incapable of handling what happened in your life, that you couldn't take care of yourself.
Our government has no power except that granted it by the people. It is time to check and reverse the growth of government, which shows signs of having grown beyond the consent of the governed. It is my intention to curb the size and influence of the federal establishment and to demand recognition of the distinction between the powers granted to the federal government and those reserved to the states or to the people. All of us need to be reminded that the federal government did not create the states. The states created the federal government.
The federal government did not create the states. The states created the federal government. And we as citizens are above all of them. We, the people, created the states. Then we created the federal government.
It is no coincidence that our present troubles parallel and are proportionate to the intervention and intrusion in our lives that result from unnecessary and excessive growth of government.
A lot of what you are listening to here in these clips is the reason why Ronald Reagan was hated by the political establishment. The same Republican establishment that is trying so desperately to kill the Tea Party, to kill the libertarian wing, these same people hated Reagan because he didn't seek to provide answers from government. This is why I say over and over, you Republicans, you conservative and libertarian-leaning Republicans might as well join the Libertarian Party and make it the dominant freedom and liberty-loving party, unless you think you can overthrow these powerful establishment Republicans. Your only choice is to start backing a true freedom and liberty party, not one that talks a lot but then does nothing to defend our rights as Americans and as humans, for that matter. In fact, they are aiding and abetting the dissolution, the confiscation of your rights by the government. You know the Democrats are wanting that, but are you wearing blinders when it comes to the Republican Party? Have you watched John Boehner kick Tea Party representatives out of committee chairs? Did you notice Karl Rove's starting of his Conservative Victory Project? It's a political action committee clearly intended to stop true Tea Party and libertarian-minded Republicans from even getting through the primaries, let alone elected. Face it, like I've said before, the people in Washington and the government in general want to be our rulers. They don't want you asking questions. They don't want you holding them accountable. Just shut up and vote however they tell you to.
In the days ahead, I will propose removing the roadblocks that have slowed our economy and reduced productivity. Steps will be taken aimed at restoring the balance between the various levels of government. Progress may be slow, measured in inches and feet, not miles, but we will progress. It is time to reawaken this industrial giant, to get government back within its means, and to lighten our punitive tax burden. And these will be our first priorities, and on these principles there will be no compromise.
Wow. Did you hear that, Republicans? Did you hear that? No backbone pansy John Boehner? In case you missed that, let's listen to that last part again.
On these principles there will be no compromise.
Gee, don't compromise your principles. Now where have you heard that before? Oh yeah, right here on this very show.
And as we renew ourselves here in our own land, we will be seen as having greater strength throughout the world. We will again be the exemplar of freedom and a beacon of hope for those who do not now have freedom.
A beacon of hope for those who do not now have freedom. You mean like the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network? That kind of beacon of hope for those who do not now have freedom?
We will not use our friendship to impose on their sovereignty, for our own sovereignty is not for sale.
Wow, another one. What a concept. Not imposing on another country because we wouldn't want it done to us.
Above all, we must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors.
We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. Exactly right. You cannot fight terrorism effectively with weapons, with guns, bombs, drones, missiles, because you have not won someone's mind. Why the people in our government cannot understand that, I will never know. If we stopped bothering all these people around the world and minded our own business, if we worked on, well, as example lifted from the Bible, if we removed the board from our own eye first, if we worked on making our country great, making our country free and respectful of natural human rights, we would not have any problems out of the other countries of the world. Their people would be wanting to come to our country. And if they couldn't get here, they'd want to emulate our freedoms and liberties in their countries. We wouldn't be over there trying to tell them what to do and when to do it If you don't like it over here, what makes you think people in other countries like our government doing it to them? Quick answer, they don't. Which is why you have people who hate this country around the world. Not because of freedom, not because of the supposed decadence of our culture. It is because we are a convenient boogeyman that keeps their oppressive leaders in power. If we weren't over there meddling around in these other countries, then they wouldn't be able to blame us for everything. They would still do it, but their words would ring hollow, much like they did to the Russian people during the Cold War. The U.S.S.R. would propagandize their people and tell them stories with how bad it was in America, but their people knew better. They had read smuggled American books and seen illegal American movies. But now in these Islamic countries, we are a very visible American presence that is killing people right and left. And we aren't supposed to expect their population to hate us for that? To resent having a foreign country, a foreign military operating within their country without any sort of declaration of war? We would not allow Russia to put troops on our soil. Heck, we don't even want our own troops operating within our country. But we maintain a presence in all these other countries, and somehow that is the correct thing to do. Somehow these people are going to thank us. They're going to worship us. Hogwash. We need to bring everyone in our military, and for that matter, our diplomatic people, home. We don't need to be putting our people in harm's way for political reasons or for any other reason that doesn't involve the actual defense, the actual repelling of a foreign invading force. We're up on the half-hour break here already on the Patrick Reagan Show. When we come back, we'll have more to talk about as far as getting us the heck out of these countries and some other stuff if we get time to get to it. This is Patrick Reagan's. We'll see you after the half-hour break.